Hi, guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Barbell Lifestyle Podcast. I'm your host, Christina Lynn, and I'm here with my co host, Marissa Roy. And in today's episode, we're going to be chatting about the best type of workout split that you should be doing to see the best progress possible.
Heck yeah. I am excited about this because I think maybe we've talked about this in passing in other episodes. I mean, it's been 190, almost 200 episodes now. So I'm sure we've mentioned the differences, but I'm excited to break down because I feel like both of our training styles and preferences and what we prefer to program for clients has changed so much over the years now.
So much.
Oh my God, it's crazy. The things that I reflect on sometimes. So yeah, we won't spoil it, but we'll get into kind of the pros and cons of all the different types because depending on your goals, there might be a different answer for you than kind of our general recommendation. But we do have a favorite that we might rely on a little bit more than others for ourselves and our clients. So
Yeah.
the different kinds, I would say, I know that just the main ones would be body part split. So splitting up different body parts, like I'm going to do shoulders today. I'm going to do glutes today. Full body, upper lower. So like full upper body, full lower body. And then I think one that I'm missing, push pull legs is another popular one. So push
Mhm.
movements, chest, shoulders, triceps. Pull would be back, biceps, maybe your delts, and then legs, self-explanatory there. So those would be the main ones. Am I missing anything?
Well, I'm thinking a little bit more of like how my husband trains. So he has like more like performance days. And
Oh, yeah.
so like cardio days, endurance days, things like that. So you can
Yeah.
also build that into a split.
Right. Yeah. And I think that goes for like then different goals of I'm looking not just for
Mhm.
aesthetics, but also for performance metrics. So actually that would be interesting to talk about how to work that in with maybe one of our favorite varieties of lifting splits. So
Yeah. Yeah.
cool. So where do you want to start?
Well, I think we should go down memory lane and
Mhm.
talk about how we used to train. And that was, back in the day, back in like 2012 to 2015, it was like super bro. Like super, super, super bro. Like you were working out specific areas. And at that time, we were very, very much into the bodybuilding world. And so that's what bodybuilders were doing. They were training back, they were training legs, they were training shoulders, they were training arms, like they were training chest, like all of these things. And I also want to point out too, I feel like at that time, especially if you were on social media, like all the like leg day memes where it's like you literally hit legs like once a week.
Yeah.
That was it. Because the idea was like if you hit them hard enough, there's no way that you can fully recover and hit legs additional time, like no more than once a week.
Yeah.
Um, which I'm like I cackle
It's
at now.
so funny. Yeah.
I know, so funny. But yeah, that's how we used to train, and that's what we used to program for clients.
Yeah. And I think I had some weird splits too. Like there would be a day where I had like shoulders and biceps or like abs and quads or something like that. And it was just very much like focused on specific body parts that we wanted to bring up for our stage presence, for the bodybuilding stage, and for the standards that were external from our own of what are the judges looking for with our physique and the weak spots, quote unquote, that we had. And we were in the gym 5-6 days a week, pretty much all the time. And so, yeah, it would be either one body part at a time, or I know that later on in the bodybuilding career that I had, I was hitting legs like 3 times a week, but splitting it
Mhm.
into different focuses. So like one
Mhm.
day was a glute focused leg day. The next day was a quad focused leg day. The next one was a hamstring focused leg day. And it was kind of all about really just targeting and really burning one specific muscle group to a pulp, or beating it to a pulp, I guess. And it's fun, right? When you're in that mindset of wanting to optimize your physique, get on stage, you have all the time in the world. These are also really long workouts too, because it's like the
Mhm.
amount of volume that you need to get a whole body part hit in one session was just, it was a lot. So
Yeah. And I think the idea of hitting those specific muscle groups like once a week was like, you need to allow yourself ample time to recover.
yeah,
And if you're
doing so
hitting,
much.
yeah, and if you're hitting, like the idea is like if you're hitting shoulders like 3 to 4 times a week, like there's no way your shoulders can recover. So that's why you need to break them up into splits.
Well, because you're doing 20, 30 heavy sets of different shoulder exercises on one day, right? And
Yeah,
it's like
yeah,
just breaking that shit down and just taxing it like crazy. Huge pump. That was a big piece of it, was like get as much blood flow to that one muscle as possible.
mhm,
So, there's not necessarily anything wrong with doing it this way. And if you enjoy that, that's great. However, I think the cons side of that is like your average Joe off the street, our average client doesn't want to do leg day and then like not be able to walk until 4 days later. And they want to have a full function of their body at all times and not feel extreme soreness and fatigue in one body part at a time. So and also practicality of how often can you train. This type of split really only works super well if you have 5 or 6 days a week to dedicate to it, because that's we have a lot of different body parts, right? And
yeah.
so
So
practicality is a big one on that.
yeah, so that's a little foreshadowing. But I think the big thing that we kind of talked about is like when you're thinking about a workout split, we need to take into consideration like what are your goals with your physique or with performance, like, and then what is the frequency in which you're going to be able to work out throughout the week, and then what is the time that you're going to be able to allocate to your workout. So do you have 30 minutes a couple times a week? Do you have 3 hours that you can dedicate 7 days a week? So based on that is going to determine what we would prescribe to you as a coach.
And I will kind of lump push pull legs into this category because it's a really popular split for bodybuilders to use. So what I described as push pull legs, because they'll typically go, when I did it, it was 5 days and it would be push pull legs, push pull. And then on the second push pull days, there would be some legs incorporated into each of those.
Mm.
And some people go 6 days per week, push pull legs, rest, and just cycling through that. And so it's a little bit of a step towards something like an upper lower or a full body, because you're now kind of grouping things in larger chunks, but you're still taxing like an entire set of muscles with movements that kind of are like each other. For example, when you bench press, you're activating your chest, your shoulders, and your triceps, which are the three muscles that you're targeting in a push day. So a lot of these compound movements are targeting all of that. But basically, you're kind of taking a step in the direction of I'm frying a little more muscle groups at once than just one. And I'm not going for total isolation. I'm able to do more like compound movements, but I still am splitting it up so that like legs have their own, 3 days of recovery. My biceps have 3 days of recovery or 2 or 3 days, something like that, because you are going really, really hard on that set of muscle groups.
Yeah. So I would say now, and for most of our, not most of our clients, but now, like I think that most people can benefit from just a full body workout split,
Mm-hmm.
which is again so drastically different than what we used to do before. But the idea is during your lifts, you are targeting all major muscle groups in a single workout session. And so you're doing squats, you're doing deadlifts, bench press, rows, shoulder press, like your workouts are hitting all muscle groups. And so like you were just saying, you're balancing that push pull and lower body exercises. And so the benefits of doing a full body workouts is your like efficiency, like you are getting more done in less time by hitting multiple muscle groups simultaneously. And so the idea is also that you can, like, you're giving yourself time to recover in between workouts, and then you can hit them again. And so I really like it from like a more realistic approach. Because again, back in 2012, like I was in college, like I had all this time to work out, and like
You
I
could
could
waddle
go to the,
around.
yeah, I could waddle around, or like I could dedicate 2 to 3 hours a day for workouts and like hit the gym 2 to 3 times a day. And like now as a parent, like there's no freaking way I could do that. So I think it's just a little bit more like realistic for most people who, and it's not even if you're a parent, it's like if you have a job, like, and you have other responsibilities, like it's just easy to adjust. And the big thing that I love is coming again, kind of from that frequency standpoint, is if you miss a day, you're not just missing legs, right? And then you don't hit legs for that week, and you're not having that volume where it's like, it's okay. Like you can just do it the next day, or like you only got 2 workouts for that week. And that's totally fine because you hit all major muscle groups twice that week. And that's fantastic. And you're going to see great results from that. And then the next week you do 3 or 4 workouts. That's incredible. So that's really why I like it. And I guess I should have said that I prefer a 3 to 4 day full body workout split.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think if you're having trouble envisioning what we mean by like the benefits of a full body split, imagine on a body part split on chest day, you're hitting like 20 active sets of like, say, like 4 or 5 exercises of chest and like 4 or 5 sets each. And that's your whole workout. And then your chest is gassed and then you move on, right? Full body is not doing 4 to 5 exercises of each body part in one day with all the rest of the body parts. That would take you 6 hours. It is really chunking down the amount of sets that you're doing per body part per session to where there is just, it almost doesn't feel like enough. Like it shouldn't feel like enough, because if coming from my background, your background, right, is we are so used to gassing a muscle group out until it is tanked, until it is shaking, until it is pumped like crazy. And a full body split does not allow that. And so that was very strange for me at first when I first started doing this. And because I wanted to feel like that one muscle group just get completely gassed. But I was like, okay, I finished my barbell squats. Now I'm on to other stuff other than legs. That's it. Like my legs don't feel like they got a pump. My legs don't feel like they got gassed. But it's like 1 or 2 days later, I'm doing another heavy leg movement. So I have to be ready for that. And what I love about full body for that reason is the intentionality that it allows you to put mentally into each exercise. Because the mentality I take into it is like, this is my only leg movement for this workout. So I'm actually going to like sit down and give it everything. And typically, like, I'm only doing 3 sets of things now. When I was doing the bodybuilding splits, I'd do 4 to 5 sets of each exercise. And mentally, it takes so much out of you. And I think when you have actually less sets and less exercises per body part, there's like a level of focus upgrade that you can take into each exercise and say, I have 3 sets of squats. It's not that much. I don't have legs after this. I don't have to brace myself for what's next. I can just give this my all. And I've actually noticed the best progress in my strength as a result. And the benefit is that you get to do that every single session. You get to give every session your all if you train 3 days, 4 days, 5 days a week. And you're not feeling that mental taxation of like, oh no, I have squats and then I have leg press and I have leg curls. Like I need to like leave some in the tank for that. There's none of that. And so what happens is you're able to output that sort of focus and intention into every exercise every day. And then you net a higher return on your effort per exercise, per body part, per muscle group across the week and across the total sets that you're doing. They're all that much more effective. And then you're actually seeing better results across weeks and months in terms of muscle gain and strength, even if you're training 3 days per week instead of 5, and even if your total volume per week is way less. And I've noticed this personally, like I'm definitely hitting some major PRs in terms of strength, despite doing less total volume per week in training than I ever have in my entire life. And it's all about, like, for me, that intentionality, like how much can I lock in? That part is so cool to me.
Yeah. And I think the other, just exactly what you're saying, I think that for most individuals, like instead of being like, oh my God, I have to dedicate 2 to 3 hours, 5 to 6 to 7 days a week at the gym, like that's a lot. That's a
Yeah.
lot of time to be spending at the gym versus like I can just get in, get out a couple times a week and see the same, if not more benefits, like being more effective and efficient with your time. Like
Yeah.
that is way, way, way better for, in my opinion. So, and then the other thing I think too, it's like, I feel like it's just kind of easier. It takes a little bit of like pressure off in a sense, as like far as like what your workouts should look like, because you're hitting just more like compound movements, like more basic movements. You're not doing
Yeah.
all these like fancy like I don't know, single leg Bosu ball, like cable body, like
Yeah.
like it's just a little bit easier. And I think that simple and basic is just going to yield the best results.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, yeah, there's just something to, and also just one more thing on that focus piece. With this time efficiency thing, I think there's a counter argument that, like, can't you also have quick workouts with a body part split? Sure. Yeah. Like, you can still be in and out in 30 minutes doing one body part. But I think that there's this like unconscious procrastination when you know you're like gonna beat a muscle group to a pulp, like, oh, I've got leg press and then I've got split squats and I've got all this. So I'm like sitting there and I'm like stalling between sets because I know I don't want to move on to the next exercise, but also this next set of this exercise is going to suck. So I'm just taking longer through it. And even though I technically need to warm up my full body and go through maybe a warm up set or two of each body part when I do a full body split, I'm moving through workouts so much faster. And I think it's just because it's like, okay, on to the next, on to the next. And it's all fresh. Everything feels fresh. And then just the functionality piece of it of like, I can do my full body workout 3, 4, even 5 times per week and still move every body part every day. Now, however, I will say that the global fatigue of like really putting your all into every movement, um, it's almost hard to train 5 or 6 days a week with a full body split for the reason of like you're actually getting so much more out of your training with less sessions. And so I think there's something to what you're saying, Christina, about like there's just less time in the gym overall that you need in order to really see effective results and what you can recover from as a whole. But because the recovery demand doesn't take 4 days on one body part, you can kind of hit it back to back or every other day and still be able to see great results without having to be in the gym 5 or 6 days a week.
Yeah, and the other thing that I kind of talk about, and I hit on this earlier, it's like if you, let's say for example, let's say you only work out 2 times a week for the year, and if you do an upper lower, so you're hitting upper 52 times and you're hitting lower 52 times. If you're doing full body, you now have doubled that. And so again, if you miss a workout, it's not going to be that end all be all, and you're not really hitting that one muscle group for the week. So I think again, from a volume and frequency standpoint, it just makes a lot more sense that you're not really missing out on that portion.
Yeah.
And so I love full body, and that's definitely it was a weird, like you were saying, it was a really, really, really weird transition for me. And I think the big part was going from bodybuilder, like competitive bodybuilder, to postpartum and
Yeah.
having kids and having like that change. And at first I was like, I don't like this. I really
Yeah. I
didn't like
really
it.
didn't for a
Yeah.
while.
And so it's wild to have this transformation, be like, wow, this is the best workout split and this is what I recommend for everyone. But it did take a lot of going into the gym and not enjoying my workouts and feeling like this is dumb. This is not doing anything. What's the purpose of this? And I know I've talked about this previously where like I've talked about my transition to workouts postpartum. and trying to find that rhythm again. And it just kind of feels like that, what's the point? What's the point of doing this full body workout? Like, 20, 30 minutes, like this isn't going to do anything. And just to see that compound over time, be like, oh, actually that was fantastic. And, I kind of had to fall in love with that style of training. It wasn't love at first sight.
Yeah.
But I really, really do enjoy it now. And I recommend it for a lot of people, because of just how easy it is to, I don't want to say easy, but it's easier to sustain over a long period of time. And so
Yeah.
that's the other reason why I really like it, because it allows people to really stay motivated, avoid burnout, because you're not having to go to the gym 5, 6, 7 days a week. And so you're really able to stay motivated, for a longer period of time.
Yeah. And then actually, you made me think of two more things that are really big advantages to full body training. So, number one, we talked about how our transition from bodybuilding and body part splits was hard because we liked that feeling of like our muscles are blown up and taxed and all that. But
Pumped and
that is actually a really negative connotation that a lot of beginners have with the gym. They're like, "Oh, my friend brought me to the gym and I couldn't walk for a week. Like, no way can I do that." Right? And that's the thing, the trauma that's like literally in their mind that keeps them out of the gym. And a lot of women really don't like the feeling of like their arms being puffy, right? Because they're like, "Oh, I don't like this. What is this feeling? Like, I feel puffy. I feel like my arms are bloated. Like, I feel like my arms are getting too big," right? That's where that fear of getting bulky comes in, is when you're hitting like 7 sets of biceps and you're like, your arm is inflated, right? And so I think that full body is actually such a wonderful introduction for most people for that reason, because they're not going through the transition that we did. It's very friendly to being able to work out, being able to move the next day, and also not having those adverse effects that like scares a lot of people off, to be frank. And the second thing is the ability to layer in other things. So you mentioned how your husband does like hybrid style stuff with performance and strength, and then my husband also as well is training for an ultra marathon. And the only possible way that you can say add in, and this goes for any sort of additional activity, right? Recreational sports, um, going running, working on performance or conditioning based workouts, layering anything in. For me, CrossFit, right? The only way you can effectively do that without really increasing your risk for injury or just like being so stiff in one body part is by having a full body split to complement whatever else you're doing. Like I know a lot of women that couple Peloton or Burn Boot Camp or different boutique style gyms and classes with their full body lifting because they can. And I remember some of my worst memories playing recreational or pickup volleyball were when I was still bodybuilding. And then I would, after a leg day, try to go play volleyball for 3 hours. Worst experience ever. So there's just that ability to like work it into real life with rec sports, other pursuits, other goals, performance based goals that you might have that doesn't make it feel impossible.
Yeah, I love that. I just, yeah, I don't think I have really anything else to say. That was like perfect.
Cool.
Well, awesome. Well, guys, hopefully you enjoyed this episode. You can find both of us on Instagram. You can find me at Christy Lynn Fit. You can find Marissa at Marissa Roy Fitness. Thank you guys so much for listening, and hope to see you back next week.